Hello, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight for this alumni career panel hosted by SageCore. My name's Hannah. I'm the head of community at SageCore. A few housekeeping things before we get started. We are recording today's call, so if you couldn't make the live event and you're watching this later, this is for you, or for some reason you need to jump off a little bit early, that's okay. We'll share this out with everyone who registered for the event. And yeah, for those who can join live, we're glad that you could be here tonight. We have an awesome panel of alumni joining us. Jack, Morgan, and Eli will be sharing their experiences. I was just saying to the group, often we host webinars of students who are reflecting on sort of their recent summer experience. So sort of like looking back at what they did at their internship, what they loved about their location, actually hosting one of those next week if you're interested in hearing about that and more about the sort of like in-country experience with the internship. But tonight's panel is really about the journey that our three panelists took from the time they did their SageCore internship till now, and sort of the career path they've gone on. We're going to ask some questions about, yeah, sort of what did they think they'd be doing when they were an intern and an undergrad, thinking ahead, and sort of the steps they've taken to their current roles. So if our panelists don't mind, I'd like to kick it off by just doing a quick round of introductions. Can you tell us your name, introduce yourself? What's your current job and current company, where you're working? What do you do there? And maybe like how long you've been there, or just like a little bit of background on, yeah, your present day and where you're at. Morgan, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, hi. Thanks for being here. My name is Morgan. I recently started as a private equity investment analyst at Access Holdings, which is a small middle market PE firm based out of Baltimore.
Very cool. Jack?
Yeah, totally. So, hey everybody, my name is Jack Pender. I'm a screenwriting slash associate producer and film distribution contractor at a production company. It's called Splicer Films. And I first started out as an intern there last semester, and I've recently just graduated from USC, so now I'm working full time there. And yeah, that's about it.
Hi, everyone. My name is Eli, and I work as an account executive at Node, which is an AI technology company. That was the only question I asked.
Yeah. Very cool. Um, okay, and now we're going to take a step back. Can you walk us back to a little bit about your college experience? First, tell us, where you interned with SageCore and who you interned with or what city where you were in. But then also a little bit about like you as a student, like where'd you graduate from? Where'd you do your undergrad? What was your major if you had any minors? And also when did you graduate? And then we'll work our way back from that experience.
Okay, I guess I'll start. I graduated from Northwestern in 2018. I studied history and business and entrepreneurship there. And at SageCore, I did an internship in Dublin, Ireland, and I worked for a technology startup there. And I did like marketing loosely.
Okay.
I guess I'll go next. So I graduated from USC in 2025. I was an economics and cinematic arts major. And at SageCore, I interned for a startup called Struck. They're based in Amsterdam in the Netherlands, where I worked as a digital marketing and sales intern. Um, and yeah, was that all the questions for this one? Okay, cool.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you, Jack.
Yeah, hi. So I went to University of Michigan. I recently just graduated just now in May, so I just started my job. I forgot to explain that in the first part. But I went to Barcelona the summer after my senior year and worked for My Real Food, which is a nutrition startup app. Super cool. I worked as a marketing intern. Kind of came away from that thinking the startup ecosystem was super cool, but wanted a little bit more hands-on experience. So then I kind of pivoted into venture capital, did an internship there summer after my sophomore year, and then I was the intern here at Access the summer prior to this one, or no, this past summer. And then yeah, just recently went on full time, and I was a double major in economics and communications.
Very cool. And Morgan, you were already starting to hint at this a little bit, but can you tell us a little more about, yeah, your kind of post grad journey in terms of, yeah, what from the time you sort of did your SageCore internship to like present day, like what were the stepping stones or sort of, um, what other roles did you hold in between sort of like graduation and yeah, your current role, if you wouldn't mind telling us a little bit about that and kind of like what you were maybe doing at each one, like just briefly.
Yeah, so in Barcelona, I was focused. The app is, they were pretty big in Spain, but they wanted to focus in more of a UK audience, so they needed an English speaker. So that's kind of where I came in, is to like deploying those strategies and like what would resonate with the UK audience versus the Spanish audience. And then from there, I worked for a venture capital firm out of Chicago called Modern Ventures, mostly focused in prop tech. So any sort of technology with application to real estate. And that kind of stemmed from after being with a startup. I thought, the process of a startup was super cool, and I just wanted a little bit more hands into how the startup was performing, as opposed to just focusing on marketing, just like being able to see the company at large. And then this opportunity in private equity came across my desk. Sophomore year was like a little PE 101, all those sophomore programs. And then it just kind of spiraled into the internship and spiraled into a full-time offer. So kind of stumbled into it, kind of entered college thinking I wanted to do a little bit more marketing, and then pivoted a little bit.
Yeah, that's awesome though. And like, did you know much about that industry or that field before that sort of like opportunity kind of like you said, kind of you stumbled across it? Was it like something you were that familiar with?
Not really, honestly. I entered the sophomore program not knowing a thing about private equity and came away from it being like, oh my gosh, that was so much information. Like, there's no way I'm ever going to be able to understand all of that. But then there's a lot of resources out there and you can learn a lot quickly. And if it's interesting, it starts to resonate and you start to meet more people. And it's just like now it's crazy to think the experience that I've gotten so far in these first few months has been outstanding. Like the level of contact that I have with all of our different portfolio companies and level of responsibility that is entrusted with me is crazy.
I love that.
Yeah.
Um, Eli, will you share with us next your journey? And I probably know your sort of alumni story the best, only because part of it is Eli worked as a program manager at SageCore for part of this story. So I got to know him a little bit then in terms of, yeah, what he had sort of done before and then, what you kind of have gone and done since. But I think your journey is interesting because you have worn a lot of different hats in terms of doing your own startup, having sort of like this side hustle on the side. I'll let you share it more, but yeah, there's a lot of pieces to it, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess my career journey has been, I guess, interesting or unique, and I have done a number of different things. So, yeah, like I mentioned earlier, studied history and business at Northwestern, and then at SageCore, I did like a marketing internship in Dublin, and then I did an internship at JP Morgan. So I did the SageCore internship this summer after my sophomore year, then interned at JP Morgan the summer after my junior year, and then ended up working there full time in San Francisco after I graduated, and I was doing that for a little bit over a year, and then I started my own watch company, and I was focused exclusively on that for like 2 to 3 years. And then after that, I worked at SageCore, as Hannah mentioned, as a program manager, which is a really awesome experience, and it was really full circle experience to go from participating in the program and then actually working for the company, and that was really cool. And then I transitioned to working in the technology industry, working in sales, and so that's what I do now. So before my current role, I worked at Palantir, and then now as an account executive, and now I work at another technology company in that same role.
And you kind of have a side hustle too. Are we
Yeah,
allowed to talk about that too?
no,
You
yeah,
neglected to
sure,
mention
sure.
that as part of the journey, but
Yeah, I make content and music as well, and so I've like built up an audience or a platform over the past few years doing that. So yeah, I guess I do. I've done a lot of different things.
yeah, I feel like you're underselling it a little bit because I see your activity online. I know you've gotten to do a lot of really cool things like that, like perform at festivals
Yeah,
and a lot of
I guess I might be underselling it a little bit. Yeah. But yeah, yeah, that's also something that I've been doing.
Awesome. And Jack, I know you're our most sort of like recent graduate, but can you tell us a little bit more about kind of like what you were doing at the internship and sort of this transition from going to that to, yeah, post grad and your full time role?
Yeah, totally. So I'm kind of similar that I've had kind of a weird career journey. When I first came to university, I started out working in a financial data analyst kind of
Okay.
accounting role, a beauty products manufacturer. Then after that, I came to SageCore and I worked in sales and marketing at Truck, where primarily I was doing a little bit of research, a lot of data and analytics, and just meeting up with different clients and doing as much marketing and specifically digital marketing as I could. From there, in the spring of 2025, I believe, so roughly a year ago, I worked for this company called Sparkling Jewelry. They're a diamonds distributor across the West Coast. And there I was working again in digital marketing. Um, and after that, during the fall of 2025, so this past semester, I started working out at this production company, Spicer Films, where I first started out in film distribution. And after I graduated, I uh, ultimately had a contract with them, try to make a deal, and where I'm working at right now. And as it stands, it's definitely like a lot of fun. When I first came to university, I honestly had no idea what I was doing, and that's why I chose a major like economics because it's just so versatile and what I wanted to do. And I ultimately ended up with entertainment and working in there. And this is an industry that I love so much personally. I feel like it's always been in my life, and I just never realized it until I started to find different opportunities that let me explore it more. Um, but yeah, it was definitely an awesome time being able to see myself just like grow and do different internships with so many different like roles and hats and industries and yeah.
Oh, and then
Awesome. I
some.
think,
Oh, sorry,
oh,
Hannah.
go ahead,
I don't
Eli.
interrupt
No,
you.
no, no, go ahead.
Okay, something else I wanted to add because I think this was also part of your question was, did I see myself doing what I'm doing when I was in college or when I was at SageCore?
Yeah.
And the answer is like definitely not. When I was at that time, I was very focused on going into finance, which I did end up doing. But I guess my
Mhm.
stint in finance was relatively short, and so like working in the technology industry right now, that was not something that was on my radar at all at the time. And
Mhm.
actually, I didn't even really know that the role that I'm doing really existed when I was in college. And then also with like the music and content, that was also something that I was not really planning for as well. I guess, kind of my career sort of just unfolded in front of me and took, different paths that I didn't necessarily plan for.
Yeah, I was going to ask that. Like, I feel like you all answered that sort of like either directly or indirectly in a sense, like basically when you were an undergrad, were you even thinking career wise that you were going to end up where you are now? Or was that even something on your radar? And it sounds like it sort of at various times you either sort of were introduced to it or sort of had to take a few stepping stones to get that. Because I think a lot of undergrads put a lot of pressure on themselves, and maybe you guys were, in the same boat at the time, like when everyone's asking, like, oh, after graduation, what are you going to do? Or what field are you going to go into? Or, like you think that you should have all of this figured out in a sense. But I think, even, you guys are all examples, people with super successful careers. Like sometimes you don't know senior year exactly what it's going to look like. But as long as you're taking sort of, I guess, sort of those stepping stones, or, next steps, I should say, sort of like into that career. Sometimes it's a bit of a journey that you have to go on before you know, end up where you're going, if that makes sense. So, um, in terms of advice for current students looking back, what do you think in terms of like what skills or experiences, habits, clubs, like whatever it is, like really helped you, I guess, in terms of getting that first job, that first internship, or sort of putting you on the path that you're on now? Um, and maybe on a similar note, also what has come up in interviews and like what's helped you land jobs or interviews? I know those are kind of two separate questions, but Morgan, if you want to kick us off and
Yeah, I would say just staying naturally curious is kind of how I've
mm,
gotten myself
yeah.
here. Just like reaching out to people in roles that I'm interested in and having conversations about, what they do from the day to day, what they like about it, what they don't like about it. Also just reading about the market in general and seeing, what's popular right now. I know it's all the AI jobs, what's happening in private equity. I mean, it's a very volatile time. Just kind of staying on top of that, I think will set you apart in those club interviews, just because I know a lot of people come in, they don't know anything. That's why they're joining the club is to learn. So, but still coming in with like some sort of framework by which to think about the market, and then also just actively seeking feedback. So even if you don't, get that club position, like asking for a follow-up conversation, be like, okay, what can I learn for next time? Just because you don't really get that opportunity when you're recruiting for a job, but for a club, it's very similar interview process, but maybe they can provide you some feedback. So also just, utilizing your network and all the older students above you has really paid off.
Yeah. When you feel like you're digging into sort of like resources things, are you like more like subscribe to a newsletter type person, blog, or are you talking about like actually read the news like current events type thing, or a mix of both, or
I subscribe to a few newsletters that will just kind of
Mhm.
output, these are the deals that are happening in the market right now. Axios
Yeah.
Pro Rata is a really good one. PitchBook has a really good one. Um, and then just, yeah, subscribing to the ones. And if you happen to see it in your email that day, just giving it a brief read through because it does come up in conversation.
Yeah. What about you, Jack? Looking back.
Yeah, totally. So I completely agree with Morgan in that staying curious is really like the number one thing for me that would allow me to find different opportunities. Just like asking questions is the number one thing, being able to meet new people and communicate with them and, get to learn more about them and learn from them as much as possible. But also having that understanding of what it is that makes people connect with each other. I remember when I first started in university, the number one thing I was struggling with was making those connections, not only just like socially, but also career-wise. So ensuring that this is like something that you're committed to and you're aware of and you talk to people and you're just like so aware of that for me was really important. Um, Another thing for what was it? I feel like for me, the number one thing was just taking any opportunity that I could. I think when I realized that I wanted to do the career that I wanted to do was because I was just taking a random entertainment class just for fun. And after that, I was like, wow, this is really interesting. I should learn more about this. And I did. And I started asking teachers and different people like in the industry what they thought of it. And the more and more I learned about it, I was like, wow, this is amazing. So just staying curious, but also just finding those opportunities and taking them, even if you're a little nervous about it. That's like for me, what was makes
Yeah.
life just so successful.
Yeah, okay. And then my answer is going to be similar to Jack and Morgan's. I feel like being curious is really important when you're in college, and I'm gonna kind of put it a different way too, which is like leaning in. So, for example, when I was at Northwestern, there were so many different like clubs and alumni events that would be going on that I tried to participate in them as much as I could
Yeah.
because I met so many I like made networks. I networked with a lot of people during doing these things, like including current students and also alumni. And it was a great way to like having conversations with people similar to this one who were maybe graduated already and they were into their careers. It gave me a lot of like context and helped me sort of plan and navigate what I wanted to do in the future. And I sometimes kind of look back and I'm a little bit jealous of that time in my life because when you're on a college campus, there are so many like cool events and opportunities and people that are like sort of presented to you. And like when you're an adult and you're in the quote unquote real world, you have to like work harder to find those communities and find those opportunities to like network and meet people that you can learn from or you may be inspired by or something like that. So definitely take advantage of that. Um, and then another piece of advice I would say is don't feel like, and this is sort of on theme with what the three of us have been saying is don't feel like you need to have everything figured out like today or right now
Mhm.
because like I mentioned earlier, the career path that I had planned for myself, which I was like dead set on, I ended up, going down that path to an extent, but my career really took a whole different trajectory that I could have never planned. And like today, I'm like working a job that I didn't even really know existed when I was in college. And I know
Yeah.
a lot of my peers are in similar situations, but I remember when I was in college, I put a lot of pressure on myself to have sort of my career like road mapped and planned out. And so I would feel say like, have a plan and like know what your next step is and have a direction, but don't put a lot of pressure on yourself to feel like you need to, have the next 10 years or something of your life planned out. And then
You can still
the
have the goals, right? Like there's no reason
exactly
you can't still have the goals in the place and then, but you're setting new ones. It's not, you don't set them and forget them, it's
exactly
something.
yeah. Exactly. And then the last thing I will say, because you asked about like advice for interviews and things like
Yeah.
that, which is to like be proactive in terms of your career planning. So like doing internships is like a big one, and like obviously Sage Core is a great example of that. And like when I did my Sage Core internship, which was abroad in Dublin, and when I was doing interviews with JP Morgan, that was like very interesting to them, and I think it was something that definitely helped me stand out. And yeah, and that's just one example of an internship that I did while I was in college. So be proactive is another piece of advice I would give.
Yeah, I was curious about that for all three of you, if like your abroad experience has been something that's come up as like a talking point in your interviews, because that's something we hear a lot is that, yeah, like it stands out, right? Like it's already like a very small minority that get to have the opportunity to go kind of like either study abroad or work abroad or something like that. So I know for even me and, jobs not even in international ed, that's been sort of something that people go, oh, Australia? You were in Australia? You lived there? So um, it's, yeah, been a theme in my career for sure.
Yeah, I will say I know I haven't gone through the full gamut of interviews, but even like at my company now, just having more conversations with more senior people and being able to have those types of life experiences to share with them, they always find it very interesting and it makes you more engaging to talk to from
That's
my
so true.
perspective. Yeah.
Yeah, for real. And even outside of interviews, it's such an interesting point to talk about and a conversation starter. Just being able to be like, oh yeah, I worked at
Yeah.
this company abroad, and just sharing those experiences with people. It's really been something for me that's been so recurring in every stage of my life, not only in interviews, but also just like meeting new people.
Yeah.
And it's actually a really cool experience now that I think about it.
And the
I
people that
love
you
that.
I met abroad, like I'm still in contact with a lot of them
Yeah,
that
and
you
it's
never know,
it's
like
so
you'll
amazing
come
seeing
across them.
everybody just grow and having these same experiences.
Yeah, totally.
Morgan does have to jump off a few minutes early here because she has a work call. Speaking of work, as we're talking about our careers here. But Morgan, before we let you go, I had wanted to ask, and I was sort of asking you this before the call, like almost everyone I know that works in private equity is a guy. Like it just seems like a very like male dominated field. And I was just like curious if that's like been your experience and sort of like is that stereotype or my perception of that true? And yeah, how to
It's
get
very,
more women in
yeah,
PE, I guess is like the follow-up question. But yeah.
it's very true. Yeah. So I started with only one other analyst in my class, and she's also a girl. We're the first two girls in the investment team. Not
Okay.
over the course of the fund. There's been women in and out, but I would say, yeah, it's just her and I right now.
Yeah.
But honestly, everybody that I work with is super great. But yeah, we are in the minority, but I did during my BTC internship, the GP and partner were both women. So it was kind of cool to see both aspects as to how each operate. But there's really not a lot of difference. Everybody's working hard, everybody's getting along very well. So yeah.
Of, of course. But I just wanted to call that out because I think, yeah, you're a great role model. And yeah, if people are thinking they want to go into that field, I would say go for it.
Yeah,
So you
totally.
can
Feel free to
reach
reach
out
out.
to Morgan if you have questions about it. So it's a great example. Um, Danny, do we have some questions either from people on the call or some of the common questions we get from like, I know you worked with students going through sort of like the pipeline, like common questions that kind of like come up for our panelists?
Yes, we don't have questions yet. We'll see if any come through. But through the admissions channel, we've heard many questions. One of them is, what advice would you guys give students that are considering the internship abroad but are still feeling unsure?
I would say go for it, like jump with both feet. It is the one of the best decisions I made during college, and I think it totally catapulted me into then studying abroad. Later, I went back to Spain to Madrid to study after being in Barcelona, and it was just like this is what it's like exploring the world somewhat on your own. Obviously, you have that stability of like living with a group of university students, but it's up to you like how you spend your weekends. And I think that's great soft skills to learn how to develop. How am I going to make the most of my time here? And I mean, if you have the luxury of being able to go and stay in a foreign country for 2 months, I think absolutely jump at it. I know I was definitely petrified, nervous, but once I got there, I was like, I can't believe I almost didn't do this. Like, this is the best decision I've ever made. So I would push anyone to.
Yeah, totally. And going off from there, I would really say to look at your goals and assess ultimately why you're a little bit nervous about
Yeah.
going through with this. Is it more of like a logistical thing or is it more emotional? Are you nervous about going abroad and leaving your family or your friends for a little bit? That was really the number one thing for me that had me on the fence for SageCore, but ultimately, like looking back, I'm so glad that I ultimately took that leap because just this experience is so amazing and fun and it really makes you grow. And immediately after, like you'll meet people like your friends or your family, and they'll look at you and the way that you act after, and they're like, whoa, like you've really grown. And that's just such an amazing experience that you really can't get with many other opportunities like this.
Yeah, my answer is the same as Jack and Morgan's. So yeah.
I love that. And Jack, I have a question for you too. Like, we get so many different majors that do the Sage Core program. Like, I think I can't remember, Danny, what it was last summer. It was like over 70 different majors across all of our different locations, like a really wide variety. And, some of them are the ones that you would expect, like the business majors, the students that already existed in entrepreneurship, the marketing major doing the marketing internship. But then we also get a lot of students like you, Jack, that are like the film studies major who, like when you look at our list of sort of like role types or internships, you might at first glance be like, oh, well, like they don't have an internship for me in a sense. You know what I mean? Like there's not like a film internship per se, but I guess could you talk a little bit about that balance between sort of like or not balance, but like that experience, I guess, coming from like not an atypical major, but something that isn't sort of like on that preset list, and then sort of having that experience or, moving into marketing like that. I'm kind of curious to hear your take on that.
Yeah, totally. So this kind of reminds me of how, like that one story about, I think it's Steve Jobs, how he took like a font class or something, and that ultimately inspired him to do Apple or something like that. I kind of had that similar experience in that
Okay.
with my film major. I was talking to one of my professors, and I was kind of complaining to her, "Oh my God, I haven't found an internship yet this summer. Like, what am I gonna do? Like, what do you suggest?" Um, and ultimately, she kind of referred to me this program, and I was talking to her about this exact thing actually, and about how I am economics, but I'm also film, and like, how does that actually relate to this? Like, is this going to be something that for me I'm able to use in my future? And really, I think what she said to me that is I've applied it to so many different things in my life. Just every experience that you have pushes you forward, and the skills that you get and the experiences that you get, they will help you in ways that you just like you can't even think of or imagine until they happen. So I guess really to answer your question, Hannah, I'd say I kind of just I made that leap. I was curious about what I was going to do, and I was really hoping that regardless of what happens and maybe what I learn, I knew that I was going to learn something that would help me in my future, whether career-wise or just personally in my life.
Yeah, that's a great attitude to have. Like, I mean, not just on this, but on anything in terms of, how you're kind of approaching these different roles. So, yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. Um, and Eli, this is a question I had been curious about for you in terms of like sort of the balance between sort of like obviously the full-time job, but then also like your side hustle that we talked a little bit about, like how much like is all of your free time going into the side hustle or like, what does that kind of look like in sort of those two sitting together? Like how do you kind of balance them? And then also I've never asked you this before, but is there ever a future that you can imagine in which your side hustle becomes your main gig? And that's, or do you like it as the hot side hustle? Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Like,
those are cool. Those are really cool questions. So in terms of balancing them, yeah, it can be difficult to balance them, but I guess I don't know. It's I've been doing it for a while, and so I guess I've
Yeah.
gotten used to it. And I would say one thing that helps is that I have a good amount of friends who are also like they make content or they also make music, and so I can, and also my girlfriend will like help me too, and so
Okay.
basically I can make sometimes my free time or like my socializing time. I can also be working on, the side hustle that you mentioned, right? And so it's not like I'm always like working my job and then it almost like feels like I'm working,
Right. It's not like
which
working two full-time jobs. You
exactly,
feel like there's
yeah.
more of a blending or a little more, it's a little more fluid, maybe, your side hustle.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So that helps a lot. And then I guess I do probably spend, like, a good amount of time like my weekends you know, like working on the side hustle, but it doesn't really feel like work. And also, for example, like I started we talk about how I make content, and I recently started a golf page, a golf focus page,
Okay.
and I just like golfing, and so I just film myself. So like my free time is now like working too, where it's like I'm filming myself golfing, and I'm like sharing my journey, learning how to golf, and so I feel like that can apply to the whole thing, where it's like it doesn't really feel like work, and I found a way to sort of incorporate it into my life, and so it's not really like I'm working, it's just like I'm living, and then I'm also sort of like sharing it. So that's the answer to the first question, and then the
So
second
if we start seeing all these things pop up, we know it's like Eli does golf, Eli does, goes out to eat at these nice restaurants, like whatever Eli's current interest is, all of a sudden there's some content popping up and he goes,
yeah.
I gotta do that. It's for the brand. I gotta.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And then in terms of like, could I see the side hustle becoming like the main thing? That would be really cool if that happened, and I'm definitely open to that opportunity. I guess sort of taking it, one day at a time. And then
Yeah.
if that were to happen at some point in the future, like that would be really cool, and I would love that.
Yeah. I was just curious, and it's not even what I want to say. Lots of people have side hustles where they don't, that's not even the aim always. Like
Yeah,
sometimes people
yeah.
are doing this, like they're growing it while they're working their full-time job so they can move into that. And sometimes, like I always found when I had side hustle in the past, like it was like a little bit of a almost like creative outlet or like from my job. Like even when I loved my job, you know what I mean? Like it was still something different that allowed me to kind of like use a different part of my brain sometimes, if that
Yeah,
makes sense.
exactly. And like sort of recharge and just express yourself in a different way. I can definitely relate to that.
Yeah.
Like you're planting. I don't know if that would count in that category.
Well, I wish it would count because then maybe I could get some, like ad money, some free plants. Maybe I'd be getting called up. They'd be sending me some, tropical plants in the mail. So far it's just me putting money into my house plants and no return on it, Eli. So
That's well, the happiness, that's the return, the
that's
fulfillment.
true. Yeah, the happiness. Um, Danny, any other questions?
Yes. Here's one. Are there any aspects of the program that you appreciate more now after you've graduated and have been working than you did at the time?
Yeah, that's a good question.
I have one. I did so like I said, I was when I was in college, I was very focused on going into finance, and I wanted my internship to be like business or finance related. And I ended up getting a marketing internship, which was like, business adjacent, but it was like I really wanted it to be like a finance internship, which did not happen. Um, and I wasn't disappointed by that. Honestly, I was just happy to be abroad and to be working. I just, yeah, it was great
Yeah.
regardless. But I didn't really expect to the marketing. It wasn't clear to me how I was going to like use that in my career. Um,
Mm.
and in or like those, yeah, so that was, but then fast forward, now I do make content, and like I was editing a bunch of videos
Mm.
when I was doing the marketing internship, and I didn't, and I was it was really cool to learn that new skill, and I didn't necessarily think I was going to be using that when I was
Yeah.
that next summer when I was working at JP Morgan or something like that, and didn't do video editing. But then fast forward a few years later, now I make content, and I use like the same software that I used on that in that marketing internship. And so that's one thing, is like sometimes you don't really know. Like, and I think that Jack, you mentioned this earlier, like you'll have experiences and you won't know, like
Yeah.
you won't know like why like how those experiences will like benefit you or how you leverage them in the future. But in that marketing internship, not the internship in general, but like that one specific skill, which I thought was sort of like, oh, okay, I guess I'm video editing. I didn't really see myself doing that. And now fast forward, I use that skill a lot.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for
and that's
real.
something all that time could, like something you wouldn't have known without. Yeah, that's a good
Yeah,
one.
that's awesome, Eli.
Okay.
Like I going off of that a little bit more, I was like, I'll think back to like, I don't know, different experiences in my life and how it impacts me in my future. And like I remember during high school, I would make like stupid edits and like videos of me and my friends and stuff. And that turns out to be like what I'm doing now, but like more of like a professional thing. So it's like it's one of those things. I don't know. Every experience just pushes everybody forward, and it's like really fun.
Awesome. What about some of the soft skills that you got from sort of like the experience going abroad? Like we talked about, sort of like something like video editing is like more like a hard skill, or, like the actual work experience is like a tangible takeaway. But what about just the experience of like living in another country? And are there any things that you sort of like, you know, took away from that experience that you think have translated into your career or given you confidence in certain areas?
Yeah, so I think really the number one experience, referring to that like hard skills
Mhm.
was presenting. This is something that
Okay,
was
that's
like
cool.
I was doing throughout my entire internship. I remember one time my boss had an emergency and he was supposed to present to a panel at like some event,
Oh, wow.
and he was like, "Oh, Jack, you're gonna have to do this," and I was like, "Oh man, what the hell? This sucks." But
How
looking
far,
back.
like how far in advance did he tell you this? Was this like right
Like three
before it happened?
hours or like 2 hours.
3 hours.
It was so bad. But looking back, I'm really happy that I ended up doing it because at the time, even though I was so stressed out about it and freaked out about it, looking
Yeah.
back, I'm just like, I'm not only proud that I did it, but I had that kind of like experience and like of just like jumping that hurdle and coming out and being like, oh yeah, like I'm fine. So like in the future, whenever I do have presentations, like I'll have presentations every other day just to different
Yeah.
clients and different film festivals and stuff like that. And it just like having that ability to have confidence and just like know what you're talking about and having that understanding of like, oh, if this doesn't go well, it's
Yeah.
like that's fine. Like there's always another opportunity. That really for
Like
me,
you've been through the pressure test.
literally,
Like
yeah. And
that's
it's
the
like,
ultimate pressure test. Yeah.
yeah. So it's just like, I don't know, having that confidence is like so
Yeah.
amazing and I love it.
That's awesome. Yeah, so soft skills for me, I guess getting experience, like being comfortable, like out of my comfort zone, and specifically
Hmm.
living abroad. When I went to with SageCore, that was my first time leaving the country outside of Mexico. So I guess it was my first time leaving the continent, and
Yeah.
and then like fast forward, like I've lived abroad like for cumulatively at this point, like over a year, I would say. Like I've lived in
Hmm.
Bali and I've lived in Mexico and I've lived in Sweden. And my internship with Sage Corp was really my first step or my first experience living abroad. And I guess I would say that it definitely like helped give me the confidence to do that. And I did do that a lot in the future.
Yeah. I lived abroad after graduation and it was because of my sort of like abroad experience as an undergrad that kind of even just taught me that I could do that. Like I think that I just didn't even know. I mean, I knew people lived abroad, but I certainly hadn't seen the I don't know, the blueprint for it or believed that I could do it until I went that first time. So I think that's great, Ela. Um, I want to thank our panelists so much for joining us, and this was great. And you guys, yeah, had a lot of really good points to share. And I know everyone watching will really value that. Is there anything else, last minute words of advice, wisdom, anything to say? No pressure, just put you on the point at the pressure test
Um,
you here at the end, Jack. Any
Yeah, totally.
yeah.
If you're scared, just like it's okay to be scared, but just like
Yeah.
keep moving forward. Like if you're nervous about this internship, but you have the opportunity to take it, like just take it, man. Just like do it.
Yeah.
I would say thank you all so much for having me. This conversation has been really fun, and I really appreciate you all's interest in my experiences. And feel free to reach out to me. Like you can find me on LinkedIn, Eli Wallace, and if you message me there, you can use I'll reply. And yeah,
I thought you were gonna plug your socials there for a minute. Or give a shout
Wait,
out
Eli,
to
do you
the
have a Spotify, dude? I want to look it up.
yeah, I do. I do. My name's
Right.
Eli. It's Elijah Wallace, so it's similar to the Eli. It's just my normal name. But yeah, so yeah, feel free to reach out to me if you want to just have any questions or just want to talk more or anything like that. And yeah, thank you all so much for having me. This has been really fun.
professional Eli on LinkedIn, music Eli on social, on Spotify and TikTok. And then apparently also if you want to learn some more about golf, you can also give
Yeah,
a follow as well. So there's a new channel for that. So I love it.
exactly.
And Morgan had to jump off early, but she also had told me, yeah, if anyone wants to reach out to her, we'll share her email and her LinkedIn. She said you can connect with her on there as well if you have questions or things you want to ask her that you think
Oh,
of
you can
that.
share my email address too. Yeah.
Yeah,
Awesome.
same thing with mine.
Thank you both. You're both awesome. Thank you.
Thank you all so much. Have a good day. Bye
Thanks,
bye.
Good
guys.
night, everyone. Thank you.